Welcome back and a very happy new year from all of us on the At Odds pod. As ever, we've got a stellar cast for you to pick through the weekend's Football Cup action. A good touch on the Tolworth. We've got a great bet for a novelty event starting very soon and a long distance bet for the end of the year for you to get stuck into at 40-1. So do stay tuned for that. After a very festive period, it's great to have Jake back with us. Jake, did you enjoy plenty of the football over the Christmas period?
I enjoyed it a lot, yeah. I love that there's been games on every single night, but obviously being a City fan, it's not been the best. That result against Everton has stressed me out quite a bit. So a good second half of the season coming up, though. I think there's actually a title race, which is good for a neutral, I guess.
Yeah. Sam, I know you enjoyed the darts that we had over Christmas, and you're paying homage to Gerwyn Price with your rather chunky headphones that could be noise defenders. What did you make of that final? I mean, that was pretty epic, wasn't it?
It's box office stuff. Smith, one of my favourite players, just to see him win was brilliant, especially when I think, well, like pretty much everybody else, I didn't really give him much of a hope in hell of doing it the way MVG was playing. But that sort of leg with the 9-darter and the potential 9-darter is just incredible. The commentary from Mardle as well, like everything about that just was just pure box office. And seeing like loads of, and you know, I'm one of those darts fans that turns up at start of December, leaves at start of January every year. But seeing kind of so many people on social media, even people like your UFC boy that you love, Jake, kind of getting involved in the darts. It's good to see that it is going so much more international now, as kind of evidenced by I guess it was semi-finals, wasn't it, with 4 different players from different nationalities. So that was cool.
Yeah, definitely. As a former darts journalist, I must say, I was used to spending my summers in Blackpool at the Winter Gardens in 40-degree heat, trying to cover Phil Taylor playing there and things. And it is great to see the sport on a really strong up curve. And yeah, interesting to see how the Yanks took to it. And as you say, there was a big UFC streamer who got involved in it, and he certainly raised the profile, I think, of the sport abroad. But we come back to the oldest football cup competition in the world, the FA Cup this weekend. Lads, before we get your bets, I want you to go back down memory lane and your best FA Cup upsets. I can remember Stevenage when they were in the conference doing Newcastle. That was quite a big result. But I think my favourite FA Cup upset of all time, and let's watch little Jake's face here as we go back to Wigan doing the giant killing of Man City in the cup final. That was quite a good one. And I think it's quite nice when the giant killing happens in the cup final, because everybody wrote Wigan off, didn't they? I think they got relegated that season and they were all right in the same league, but obviously at different ends of the table. And yeah, that was pretty special. And it really still does have the magic for me anyway, the FA Cup. Jake, your favourite FA Cup giant killing?
I mean, I just can't stop thinking of that Wigan game, Bods. It was absolutely terrible. What a bad day at Wembley that was. Horrible. Just thinking of giant killings, I mean, some of my earliest memories being a City fan are some of the big wins that we've had in the Cup. I mean, the best FA Cup game for me in my memory is when we were 3-0 down away to Tottenham, down to 10 men at half-time, and we came back and won 4-3. And that's a game that City fans, it's a classic game for us. Back in probably, I'd say, 2003, that. So, yeah, the FA Cup provokes massive memories. Obviously, again, personally for me, that was the first cup that we won, the FA Cup. Yaya Toure was a legend for us in that game, and it's just it's an amazing cup. It's my favourite competition by far, I think, domestically.
Farley, Plymouth fan, any famous upsets there or anything that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, we probably haven't had quite the storied history in it that either of your clubs have had. But even last year, we had 2-1 defeat to Chelsea when we were kind of on top for a lot of games.
I remember.
Played brilliantly. Yeah. Great away day. Had an away day up in Liverpool a few years before. We drew there and got them back to our place and lost narrowly. So that was good memories. But I think my first ever football memory was FA Cup. And I don't know why it's kind of etched into my mind. It's 2 things from the same game. 1996 FA Cup final.
Oh, I know.
Liverpool in those cream suits. I remember that. And I just remember, the only thing I remember about the game was the Cantona goal.
Because it was an awful game. That's why it was
yeah, that's probably why.
Worst finals I've ever seen.
I just remember like they were wearing those quite cool kits that were like sort of green and white quarters, Liverpool, and the ball just like pinging off his foot and kind of just going perfectly through the bodies everywhere. So that was, I mean, maybe not a great memory because I don't really care about it, but that's the first memory I have of football. So yeah, really, really cool that. But what a tournament it is.
That's the magic of the cup. Anyway, let's get stuck into finding the bets. And Jake's picked out a side that I've got a lot of interest in. He thinks my Palace are going to get the better of Southampton, who are in real trouble when it comes to the league. Jake, what's the theory here?
A lot of this theory is just fully behind how bad Southampton are. Watch them under Nathan Jones, and they have just looked absolutely terrible. I thought that they'd get the new manager bounce and they'd look good, and they just haven't at all. I don't know if they're just missing a certain target man up front or something like that, just something to get them going. But the fact that Nathan Jones has only been in charge for, I'd say, 3 or 4 games, and they've already been booed off at full time yesterday against Forest, says a lot. Now, Palace, that game against Tottenham in the midweek, it wasn't the best game of Palace, let's put it that way, but there's always something there with them. And I know we've spoke previously about not having a good striker up front, but you still have some players in the attacking positions who are deadly. And I just think it evens for you to beat a Southampton team who are terrible. It's too big a price for me, that. Far too big a price.
That's interesting. And I know you've got another selection, so I'll come back to you on that. But just to touch on the game you've picked out, it's interesting to see they finally changed to 3 at the back under Jones over the last Premier League tie. And apparently the players really don't want to do that. I think they're going to be very unattractive as a club to try and pick up some talent in this January window. I don't think they're going to... Nathan Jones, I've got a lot of time for him, but I think if you're a player coming from abroad to a struggling team, I don't think he'll inspire the same confidence as someone with a bit more of a CV in the top flight. So I think I can see the angle. I won't be backing Palace. Again, one thing I'd say is I'll be waiting for team news if I was having a bet this weekend on any of these games. Sam, you're going for a fairly strong handicap bet here.
Yeah, so Leicester -2 is 9-5 on the road at Gillingham. I think it's just an absolute home run kind of bet. Leicester obviously struggling in the Premier League. One thing they could really do with, Brendan Rodgers in particular could really do with, is a little cup run. Get that motivation going, get the spirit going, get the fans kind of pumped up for that. And Gillingham, easy game. They'll make a few changes, don't you worry about that. But this is a Gillingham team who, frankly, are a disgrace. They're bottom of the Football League, 14 points out of 23 games. I've got a good friend who's a Gillingham fan who's just telling me just how bad it is. This is a team that have scored 7 goals all season. They are atrocious. Now, they're going to do a good job defensively, no doubt about it, or they're going to try and do a good job defensively. But I just think Leicester, even Leicester's B team, their youth team, are going to have too much for this Gillingham side. I think they're going to put a few goals past them, really give them a tonking. And at 9-5? Really, it's a pretty big price. I'll be chucking this in. I'll be doing it as a single. I'll probably do a couple of doubles, maybe a treble and quad as well. I love it.
Fair enough. Right. One thing I would say, Gillingham's takeover's gone through. They've got Andy Hessenthaler coming back to the club. And I believe the former Millwall manager, whose name is Kenny Jackett, is joining the board as well. So I think they're going to have a better future. But I'd say right now they're bang in trouble. I'd agree, Sam.
And they're talking about spending money as well. But ultimately, that's not going to help them this weekend.
Not before this weekend. No, exactly. I'm going for a really boring shout, but I think Brighton will win up on the road at Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough obviously making great strides recently, but I can foresee that, let's be honest, if you're a struggling Premier League team or a team in the Championship that's aiming to get into the Premier League, the FA Cup or Carabao Cup is a massive distraction. I really don't think, you asked the manager honestly off the record, do you want to get into the 4th round of the Cup after a replay in the 3rd round to play someone half decent when you've got a struggling squad, not got the resources? Middlesbrough need to focus on getting back into the Premier League. I suspect some fringe players will come in. Brighton, to me, have got squad depth. They've also got the pressures very much off them. They're not looking over their shoulders in the Premier League. They've got players back from the World Cup now. they might well the game. I think they've got the depth there. Interesting to see if young Evan Ferguson starts them. Seems to be making a bit of an impact. But they've got depth, haven't they? If Danny Welbeck starts, he's a quality player. I think they'll have enough for them. And I might not be a Brighton fan, being a Palace fan, but I think at 8-13, I'd want to back them against a likely changed Borough side. Before we move on to the Carabao Cup, and I'll let Jake take us into that, I know Sam and yourself, Jake, actually both like Wrexham in the Cup. So have a chat about that.
Yeah.
Why don't you go first, Nick?
I think that I've been trying to look for some upsets because let's be honest, there's always going to be some big third round upsets in the Cup. And to be honest with you, lads, looking at it odds wise, there's not a lot out there that I think that, right, this team can beat this team. But Wrexham are 7-2 away against Coventry. It's a 5:30 kickoff on Saturday. They'll have a lot of fans travelling to Coventry, backing them. And just in terms of form, last 6 games, Coventry have only got 6 points. Wrexham have got 14 points in their last 6 games. Wrexham are flying, and they are competing at the top of the conference. And it's a game that their owners will be all over it, I'm guessing. And again, the fans will be up for it. And it's just 7-2 is a big price for Wrexham in the form that they're in. What about you, Farley? What's your thoughts on this game?
Echoing that, basically. I think Coventry are going through a bit of a trickier time, and I don't know if a cup run is really what they need right this moment. And Wrexham, for their part, been saying it for a long time on the show even, but I think there isn't a golfing class between the top of the conference and pretty much the top of League 2, to be honest with you. So I think, you consider Wrexham a conference club, sure they are, but in ability, I'd say they're considerably better than that. So, I think 7-2, it's not the biggest price in the world, especially for a team that is technically a couple of divisions lower, but I still think it's a very good price.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. So FA Cup, that's all wrapped up. Let's move on to the midweek games, which is the Carabao Cup, which is the best. We talk about the FA Cup. Forget about that. The Carabao Cup's the one that everyone wants to win, lads. Come on. No, I'm kidding. But there's some really good games actually in this midweek. And I'm just having a look at the bet you've got on, Bos, because it's a decent price for an all Premier League tie, definitely. You're backing Forest to beat Wolves in these games. And what's your reasoning behind that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be going too crazy on the Carabao Cup full stop. But here's my theory. Both Forest and Wolverhampton Wanderers have got a lot going on in the league. However, what's the one thing we know about Forest? Who of the two would have the better second 11, if you like? For my money, it's Forest all day long. If you're a Forest second 11 player, you're pretty annoyed. You're pretty fed up. The tide is starting to turn. You want to either be playing for a move or playing your way back into this Forest side that it looks like they're going to stay up. I think they'll stay up. So I just think there's a bit more in that Forest second 11 to play. I think there's more depth to them as well. And I thought 9-5 is just a bit of a price. And I think Steve Cooper, from memory, does tend to take the cups fairly seriously. But I think with the resources he's got at his disposal, I know Wolverhampton have got the new manager bounce. I thought they played quite well against United. I saw that game. They've obviously picked up results. I just think he's got a bigger job on his hand at the moment. He's a few weeks behind, obviously, where the likes of Forest and Cooper will be. And I think there'll be some hungry players in that Forest side. So for me, I thought 9-5, that's the only real bet that stood out for me in the Carabao.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Now, Tuesday, I know, Farley, you've said you're not having a bet because it'd be the same as what I'd tip in the document that we have. And the one I'm tipping is Newcastle to beat Leicester. Now, Newcastle are around 7-10, 4-6 in some places. The whole place is going to be absolutely bouncing. I know that there's been a lot of stories around Newcastle where the fans have already said that they've booked hotels for Wembley for the League Cup final. They're all absolutely buzzing for this game, and they're going to be coming up against the Leicester side, who, again, they've struggled in recent weeks too. I know, Farley, you was picking them on the handicap against Gillingham in the FA Cup, which should well come in, but I think against the Newcastle side, who, again, are going to be absolutely buzzing for this one, and I think they're just a better team than Leicester by far at the minute, to be honest. It's just too good a price, and they should get through. Quickly, in the EFL Cup, out the other games, United Charlton, no chance of an upset in that one?
No.
Southampton City, no chance of an upset in that one?
No.
No, not really.
No. Right, that leads us on to Bankers Bust and Draw then, and we're focusing.
Can I ask you one very quick question? I've seen on, I think it's The Athletic actually, had an article today that surprised me a little because this thought hadn't even come into my head, sort of questioning whether Man United were indeed firmly in the title race. Do you think, and I looked at the odds after that and they were 30-1, do you think that is the case? Because they're obviously not far back behind City, I don't believe. I'm just going to get the Premier League table up here. And obviously Newcastle's in between, maybe not quite as good a team, and they do have played a game more. But you're United down in fourth, 17 games played on 35 points, tied with City, who are in third, game more. Your club, Manchester City, are second with 36 points, and obviously Arsenal, 44 points. So 9 points ahead of Man United. Do you think Man United have a sniff at this?
They're not in the title race, but they're not out of it either. How's that for a diplomatic answer?
I think I read that on a fortune cookie once.
I mean, yeah, it's a little bit fence city, isn't it? I've probably got splinters up my arse after saying it. But here's what I'd say. I'm not writing them off. I do think Newcastle, having watched their performance against Arsenal, they should have won it at the death. I know Arsenal were very good in play parts, but I think if City slip up again, and if Arsenal don't get their transfer business sorted in the window to bring in someone that can just help improve that squad, I'm not sat here going, this title race, I'm ruling anyone out, really. Liverpool, I think I can probably start thinking that looking at their effort is gone. But the other problem you've got is no team is to my eye. Arsenal have looked the best so far this season, but Newcastle is dispelling everything I thought that they'd be under Eddie Howe, and I've been proven very wrong. They haven't spent crazy money, and they've got a really good, efficient footballing side. I'm not prepared to rule anyone out really at this point in time from the list you mentioned.
I think Newcastle, I wouldn't rule them out. I don't think you can rule them out, but I think their lack of experience, even not necessarily Premier League winning experience, but just sort of big crunch games, I think that will come into play kind of down the stretch. But I'll just look at the fixtures. Man United next weekend play Man City at home, and then the weekend after that have Arsenal away. And I'd say that little pair of games, if United got, say, 4 points out of that, a win and a draw, just avoided losing and got a win, I'd say they probably are in the mix. I don't think they're going to win it. I think Arsenal will drop off, but I think City are good enough that they can. They'll be the ones who kind of take advantage of that if it happens. But yeah, it's interesting to see that two kind of outside clubs in Newcastle and United are not actually that far off right now.
Yeah, I just don't think we see him up for it this year. I think the last two home games have proved that against Brentford, who are a good side, but Everton at home, just getting one point from a possible 6, it's just not good enough. And the players just don't see him up for it in these Premier League games. And I don't know if it is just the case that they're focusing on the Champions League this year. I can't see us chasing the points, to be honest. And I could even see us dropping points a lot this month. I mean, we've got some tough fixtures. We've got United, like you were saying. We've got Spurs at home, Spurs away, Arsenal away. So it's tricky games.
Oh, no. You've only got the best striker in Europe, in the world to help you out, Jake. We won't be playing the tiny violins for you just yet. True.
But we can, as a City fan, we can never get away from typical City. And it'd be the most typical City thing that we break the scoring record with a striker and then we don't win the league.
I mean, what
typical City doesn't exist anymore, mate.
Yeah.
Mate, that Real Madrid game last season, that showed me that typical City still do exist. Bottlers. Anyway, let's talk about that because I can talk about that for weeks and weeks on end. Because Bust and Draw for the FA Cup, this should be straightforward, lads. Let's be honest. should be absolutely straightforward. Bos, let's start with your banker for the FA Cup games.
Yeah, I've mentioned Brighton, so I'm going to stick with them. I know they're odds on, but I think they'll get the job done. My bust is going to be Bournemouth, who I believe have got the company of Burnley, who under Vincent Kompany, I think Vinny Kompany, if Burnley manage to somehow conspire to not go up, will get a Premier League job in the summer. I think he'll be a man in demand. I think he's done a really good job at Burnley so far, on albeit limited resources. I know he's had some assistance from his former club, but I really like Burnley, and I think they'll get the job done. I might even back them to win. And then my draw was going to be Brentford v West Ham, just a all Premier League tie. You expect changes from both sides. I know Brentford have obviously been playing well. They got that epic result against Liverpool. West Ham last seen drawing with Leeds, but I do think there's enough depth at West Ham that they'll make a fight of it. I could just see that being a draw and probably quite unhelpful for David Moyes to end up. Do we still have third round replays, or have they scrapped them this year?
Still have them, mate. Still have them.
Okay. Yeah, that would be very unhelpful. So that would be my three.
Cool. Farley, before we get to yours, I'll go with mine first, actually, because I'll get straightforward and over and done with. Spurs at home to Pompey, 1 to 10 favourites. Should absolutely destroy them in the form that they've been in. Well, the form that Portsmouth have been in. Portsmouth, have they got a new manager yet, Farley? Do you know?
I don't know if they have. I'm not sure, to be totally honest.
I'm not sure if they've got a new manager yet. Liverpool at home to Wolves. Wolves have actually impressed me in the recent games that they've had under Lopetegui. I know that they lost against United and they dropped points late on against Villa midweek, but the performances have been good. They've been a lot better than they have been in the past. And a Liverpool side who, as much as Wolves have impressed me, Liverpool, that game against Brentford was just an absolute disaster. And I'm just not having them at 1 to 5 in that game. And then Bournemouth, Burnley's my draw. I know you've put Bournemouth as your bust, Bos. And again, I can see that as a draw. Burnley are a good side and Bournemouth are just struggling at the minute. And I can see that being a draw. Farley, your 3 picks for this.
Yeah, so look, I'm going to start with my draw because I think you've mentioned it in yours, but I think Middlesbrough Brighton has draw written all over it. Now, I'm going to do this totally the wrong way around, actually. My bust, Forest are odds on the road at Blackpool. They don't even know what their best 11. I mean, they don't even know what their best 18 are. They're an absolute, they're still a bit of a mess. I know they won obviously this week, but they won. But like, come on! Like,
I take issue with this. They're starting to turn the corner here, Farley.
I really hope they're turning the corner because I would love them to stay in the Premier League. I love the gaffer, and for me, any club that was a Premier League club when I was in my adolescence deserves to be in the Premier League for eternity. That's just how it is. But Blackpool are no mugs, and I think a tricky cup game. Do they really need a cup run? I'd say probably not. I just think that has kind of certainly not going to be back in Forest at odds on. And the one I think is the bank of the week is Newcastle at Wednesday. Chef Wednesday, good team, but ultimately their biggest priority is getting up. They need to get out of League One. And as Plymouth Argyle fans will know, there's already some brilliant teams in League One, including ourselves. And it currently looks like it's you never know how things change, but it looks like it's a 2 or 3 situation for the automatic spots between the Mighty Greens, Sheffield Wednesday, and who's the other team? Ipswich. So it's a bit of I think they have to have their eyes on the league, and I'd say the same for any other club that's kind of really competing with promotion. The league is what ultimately matters here. So for me, Newcastle going to swat them aside quite easily and crack on.
Nice. Okay, so that about does it for football now. So let's move on to racing, Bos. Now, I don't really need to give you an introduction, do I? Let's be honest. You know everything about racing as far as I'm aware. What have you got for us this week, mate?
Yeah, it's the sort of starting to creep our attention towards Cheltenham now after a really good Christmas. And I'd say go and review King George. Was a great race over Christmas. Go and watch that back. Check out some of the Irish action as well. There was some very good races there. But we creep now Cheltenham is 9 weeks away. The next kind of 2 to 3 weeks, finishing up with the Dublin Racing Festival, is your last opportunity really to book your ticket. So these next 4 weeks, we're starting to see all the festival hopefuls. And the Tolworth Hurdle is the feature race at Sandown on Saturday. This hurdle is a race for novices, so there'd be the likely types to be seen in either the Supreme, which is the opening race on day one of the festival over 2 miles, or the Ballymore over 2.5 miles on the Wednesday, the opening race there. So this is their first season effectively over hurdles. In all likelihood, Tahulworth for Paul Nicholls, who had a great Christmas winning the King George with Brave Man's Game, and Harry Cobden, the jockey, team up once again to be with the 2-1 favourite there. Unbeaten this season, plenty to like about his chances. Has an official rating of 134, which is the highest in the race. Next in is Authorised Speed, who was a course and distance winner for Gary Moore at the track going back to December, and looked a really, really nice horse, actually, I must say. I think he's certainly one I'd be interested in, but he didn't jump very well. He won in spite of some poor jumping. So if he brushes up on his jumping, you'd like to think that he's probably going to be an even better horse, but you've got to make that assumption, and he'd need to beat this favourite, I think. Next in, we've got the Irish Razor, Arctic Brezel for Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore. Rachel wouldn't have ridden at Sandown too many times, but the horse she's coming over to ride was an impressive winner at Cork by a sire called Blue Brezel, who is one to note. All his progeny, I should say, he's producing at stud are definitely starting to catch the eye. The race he won was earlier on in December, and I just think looking at that race, I think it was done quite nicely. He's definitely going to be a type that will appreciate going, I think, a little bit further as well. But the good thing is the ground at Sandown is currently soft. We've got more rain due. Sandown soft is like the softest soft you can get. So, yeah, no worries about the going for him. My selection, however, is going to come not from the front three in the market, but going to be Colonel Harry for Jamie Snowden. Currently a 25-1 shot. Has a very lightly raced programme, very lightly raced profile when you flick through. Look at him here. Started his season at Uttoxeter. That was his first run over hurdles since winning a point-to-point in Ireland. Joined the Snowden team, was second over 2 mile 4, then came back in trip at Sandown, where he ended up winning a maiden hurdle that I think has worked out pretty well. He only had to jump 6 because they admitted 2 hurdles. And actually, it was such heavy conditions, the rest of the card got cancelled after this race. But I flicked through the form book, and even the 5th that day has gone on to finish second in a fair maiden hurdle at Plumpton. I definitely think there's some substance to that form. If it gets wetter, he won't have an issue. And I just thought 25-1, you've got 8 runners in the race. He's an each-way play. He probably won't win it, but I just think if you want to get a bit of value finishing second or third, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Authorised Speed doesn't jump well enough. The favourite should handle the going, but at 2-1, I don't really want to be with him. I personally think if it gets heavy, I'd take him on. And the Irish Raider, needs to show that the Irish form is up to the English form, which I think it will be, but there's enough holes I could pick in the front three. But I think Colonel Harry, unexposed, is the selection at 25-1 as an each-way play.
25-1 is a big price. What a price that is. I love that. But what I will say is, Bos, I'm pretty sure you promised me and Farley some sort of Cheltenham bet at some point around this time. And I'm yet to hear anything, mate. I'm yet to hear anything.
Yeah, honestly, my anti-post betting either hasn't gone well or has been quite limited so far. It's been a funny year. We lost a great deal of racing in December, which tends to be when I start to firm up my opinions. And then we had a glut over Christmas, and I'm not really there yet. One thing I would say is I did put Edwardstone up for the Champion Chase at 16-1 at the start of the season. He's since done very well. He's 5-4 against Energumene for the Clarence House Chase on the 21st of January. If he gets the better of Energumene, if they were to clash there, he's going to be a very short price for Champion Chase. He's already shortened, so that's one I'd be keeping an eye on. I'll probably have something for you next week, lads. I think it's fair to say.
This is all music to my ears, absolute music to my ears, that definitely. Now, moving on from racing, we'll head over to Sam Farley, because if you listened to us last year and you watched us last year, you'll have seen that Farley tipped the winner of last year's Sports Personality. Beth Mead, I think, 12-1 was it? 8-1, I think, maybe? Around that price.
I can't remember. It's quite high.
Well, if you think that's high, wait for this tip because he's got a pick at 40-1 for this year's sports personality of the year.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of go through. I'm going to talk about this with you guys a bit. So we're going to keep this very brief, but
yeah,
go through the kind of the guys at the top of the market here. Favorite Lewis Hamilton. You know, you never know what's going to happen, but I think he's not the most popular guy out there. He is probably on a decline now because of his car situation. Obviously, that can change, but you know, probably deserves to be favourite. But I'm not super keen. Ben Stokes at 10-1. He'd be the person I'd probably have as favourite because I think obviously in Ash's summer, the test team are doing well. Probably a good opportunity. Tyson Fury 12-1. Tyson Fury could have a fight a month against the 12 best fighters of all time and win. He's never going to win this award because of his personality. George Russell, I don't think is going to win. Frankie Dettori next is his final year, but can we see him win? Probably not. I think AP was the last jockey, wasn't it?
He's not going to win enough races to be like in contention for champion jockey. He's going to go abroad quite a bit. A lot of the BBC don't like horse racing, which I don't think is the biggest controversial opinion ever, given they don't cover it anymore. So you can put a line through him. Yeah.
Then you got Rory McIlroy 22s, always a possibility. Not going to rule him out certainly. Then you got a couple of tennis players, a couple of cricket players in Joe Root and James Anderson. Then you got Beth Mead. Obviously, the Women's World Cup is this year. It's going to be a lot tougher. It's going to be on in Australia, obviously. So people aren't going to be able to watch the games in the same way that they do now. So even if England win, are they going to be as kind of, sort of, I guess, favourites with everybody who isn't necessarily a big sports watcher? I'd say probably not. Emma Raducanu, 25-1. The way she's been going, I hate to say it, I don't think she's going to win a slam this year. Leah Williamson, another footballer, same applies as Beth Mead. Michael Smith, obviously the darts player. By the time he's in the next tournament, the next World Championships, this would have taken place. So realistically, no. There's all these players as sportsmen that don't really make a huge amount of sense, but there's kind of one thing that really leaps out to me this year. In terms of events, we've got the Women's World Cups, and I've sort of gone through why I don't think that'll work. You have the cricket, you have the Ashes. We have a good team at the moment. So I think you got potential winners there. And then you have the Rugby World Cup at the end of the year. Now, remember, last time England won a Rugby World Cup, 2003, Johnny Wilkinson was sports personality that year. So I think if you look at the best price available in England to win the World Cup, you're getting 7-1. So why not go slightly left field, pick an England rugby player to win sports personality of the year at a far bigger price? You can go each way. Get 3 places. That's a way that I would looking on that rugby market. So for me, you got Marcus Smith, who plays fly half. Your Owen Farrell also plays fly half or centre. Those guys are both 40-1 right now. I'm going to have a little sprinkle on that. And Steve Borthwick's coming into the England job now. He might stick with Farrell as his captain, but there's talk that he might go to Courtney Laws or Ellis Genge as well. Both brilliant players who will play for England if they're fit. And I'm going to request these with bookies, have a little sprinkle on them. And then finally, Manu Tuilagi. He's England's best player when he's fit. He's one of the best players in the world when he's fit. The question is he going to be fit? He is never fit. If he plays, England have a good chance in the World Cup. That's how good he is. And I think he's the sort of player that if he plays and England win the World Cup, there's no way he wasn't the best player on the team. So I'm going to request him because you can't currently get odds on him. But I think it's just about looking for like weird ways to, I guess, improve your odds of things you think will happen. And I think sports personality is a good way. If you believe England will win the World Cup, and to be honest, I don't. But if you think that's the case, I think you can get good value on betting the sports personality of the year award.
Nice. Bos, just for fun, can you give me a name who you think is going to be sports personality in the year?
Do you know what? I used to really think I had a bit of a handle on this. And as I've got older, I don't seem to understand the voting public as well. I think Farley's got the right logic. I guess it's understand, like all the snooker fans I know always moan that Ronnie doesn't get enough of a push. And obviously he was involved, wasn't he, the last time round? But he's a 50-1 shot. I don't really get too excited by it anymore, sadly. So I'm going to probably park it. I always do think recency bias is something to be a bit cautious of as well with this.
Yeah, true.
I mean,
Yeah.
they moved the whole event this year because of the Men's World Cup, and I think the thought that if we'd won it, it would look really silly that they didn't have Harry Kane there. Yeah, I think there's some money to be made. I think clever nicking of prices as you wait. Basically, if you're going to start playing it in January, Farley's got the right idea because you can go have probably 7 or 8 selections by the time you get to the late winter and the late autumn, I should say, and you kind of have probably got 1 or 2 at nice shorter prices. Just be vigilant. It's a market. If you're going to bother playing it now, you're going to need to play it all the way through the year.
What odds was Jimmy Anderson again, Farley?
Let me have a look. 25 to 1. I think you get that's a good price.
Yeah, because he's on the brink of retirement. He's only, I think he's like 25 wickets off beating Shane Warne, going up above Shane Warne in total Test wickets of all time. And I can see him breaking that against Australia in the Ashes this year and then retiring on a high. So that could be a good price too.
I don't believe he's ever placed. I don't know if he's ever been nominated, but he's definitely never placed in the top 3. And cricketers do generally do quite well in this. Whether or not they win it is another thing. I think we've had, at least in the last few years, we had Ben Stokes like 4 years ago. I think we had Flintoff after that incredible Ashes series back in 2005. But there's been people placed in that time as well.
Yeah, but like you said, Bos, recency bias definitely. And you've got to look at the World Cup too. Rugby World Cup, October, I think that finishes. But then we've got the Cricket World Cup too this year, the one-day World Cup where the holders, aren't we? So I think that finishes November time. So maybe again recency bias. It's just going to be a bit, like you say, we could have 3 or 4 different candidates at a big price, and then once we get to September, October, November, they're all going to be about 4 to 1 in single figures. I like it.
So, Jake, you love a dodgy bet. I think it's time. I know you've got a dodgy bet for us to start the year off right. What have you got for us?
Right. So what I've got for us this time is Dancing on Ice. Now, I'm not going to sing the theme tune. I don't know the theme tune, to be honest with you, lads. I'm not a massive Dancing on Ice fan, me. I'm not going to lie to you. I'll watch it now and then if something funny happens, but other than that, I'm not a massive fan. But looking at the odds for this, now, there's one standout candidate, and I know that before recording, Bos mentioned this too, but Ekin Su, she was the winner of Love Island last year. If you listen to this podcast, you'll have heard Farley waxing lyrical about Ekin Su quite a lot over the few weeks that Love Island was on. She's currently second favourite. Well, you love Davide and Ekin Su. I think you was calling yourself Deckin Su for a bit. Anyway, Ekin Su and some bookies, she is 3 to 1 favourite, but there are odds out there where you can get her at 7-2 second favourite to win the show. And a big reason behind backing her to win this is popularity, social following, and again, I think that's a big reason why she won Love Island last year too. 7-2 is a big price for a show like this where you usually start to get a favourite of around evens or 2 to 1 around now. It is a show where the first couple of weeks are going to be crucial. You're going to see if there are actual people who just can't skate. Ekin Su may not even be able to be good at ice skating, let's be honest. But 7-2 is a big price against Niall Wilson, who is favourite with some bookies too. Bos, do you want to add any more about Ekin Su?
I've got a theory that effectively, I think the more you need one of these reality shows to come out the winner, surely the more preparation you do on the sly. Like, you look at Strictly, a lot of the people that go late into competition, maybe not win it, are from a musical background, or they've got some rhythm, or they've done some acting. So if you've done acting, you've probably done dancing. So I would always have a little look through the list of contestants. Jake, am I right? Is Patsy Palmer in it again? Because I'm sure
Patsy Palmer, she's in it, yeah, mate. She's 25 to 1 to win it.
Did she not do it before?
I'm not sure.
I thought that's a bit strange. Maybe she was lined up for it before, but I don't know. I always like someone that's got a bit of a theatrical background. I do like Ekin Su as an option. I think she's got a lot to gain. I think if you believe the rumblings that potentially things with her and Davide aren't that strong, if she was to break up with him during this show, I could see Fiat 500 Twitter coming out and voting for their queen and giving it a bit of a, we need to back her. I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it because who votes in these shows? This is the big thing. Who votes in these shows? That's what you've got to think. Will she appeal to the voting public that vote? I don't hate the bet. I think he's a little bit skinny, but I think she'll go well. And if her agent's had any sense, she's had her on ice for the last 5 weeks practicing to make sure she's half decent.
Yeah, and we definitely won't be back in John Fashanu at 33-1. That's all I'll say. Watch me have egg on my face now, and John Fashanu is the best ice skater of all time. But let's move on. So I think that nearly wraps it up really now, lads. Again, if you do have any questions for us, don't hesitate to message us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you want. Just drop us a message to the At Odds Pod on all our socials, or even just message us individually too. And give us a follow, like, subscribe, follow us on all the platforms too. Everything you do, it just helps us out further. Should we move on to the treble? The treble. Who wants to kick us off?
I'll go first because I'm short as price this week. Love Envoy festival winner for Harry Fry runs in the 12:40 at Sandown. Listed mares race. It's 4-9 odds on. She actually ran in a handicap on her seasonal reappearance here. Loves soft ground, so that's no problem. Loves the track. That was a handicap. She'd give top weight away. First start of the season, she still won. I think she's an exceptional mare. She'll win again. I think she's actually in receipt of £1 from Martello Sky, who's rated £4 inferior to her. I just don't really see how she gets beat as long as she jumps and is in normal health, which you'd expect. Johnny Burke takes the ride, top rider, only 5 in the race, and I think she wins.
Now, purely because I've discussed this previously and there's not much else I can give in terms of reasoning, my pick for the treble is Palace to beat Southampton at evens. And again, I think it's a lovely price for that bet. But I'm intrigued to see Farley's reasoning behind his pick for the treble, because I'm not really good on NFL. So explain it. Why are you picking this one?
So Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars, they are playing the Titans on Saturday night, technically Sunday morning, actually. I think it's at like 1:15 a.m. They need to win to go to the playoffs, and the Titans need to win to go to the playoffs. It is a win and in situation for both teams. The Titans have got their backup QB. Actually, I think they've got their second backup QB will be playing. The team's a bit of a mess right now. The Jags are on the ascendancy. They've been absolutely brilliant since week 9. Travis Etienne, really good running back. Their main offensive weapon, obviously, besides the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. And you're getting 21-20 on him to score, and everything just goes through him. The Titans, not necessarily that bad against the rushing attack, but I just think he's such a big part of the game plan, and this is the biggest game of their season without question. So I think we'll see him, and seeing him score and getting in the end zone, I think is quite likely. And look, we love a little Saturday night bet, don't we? Where you can wake up on a Sunday morning, check the old betting account to see a little winner in there. Nothing better than that. So yeah, that's my pick for this.
Is this weekend? Is it last red zone of the season, or are we?
It is indeed the last red zone of the season. We're in week 18. So Sunday you're going to have. Let me work it out. How many games you're going to have? 14 games on Sunday across the day. So that's going to be really good. Starts at 6 p.m. UK time. Host of games, loads of stuff to sort out. So looking forward to that. Lots can happen, and you know what the NFL is like. When there's an opportunity for drama, it does inevitably happen.
Really quick question. Is there any opportunity that a draw is required by any teams? I can't think of the 2 teams involved. I think Vegas were involved. But wasn't there a point last year where a draw was what both teams wanted, and somehow against
very close.
It was a massive fight. It got really close, and then the other team fairly went for it. I think Vegas were involved in it. I can't remember.
It was. Raiders. I think it's Chargers, Raiders. Off the top of my head. That's not really the case now. There's no kind of funny results. Weirdly, you had a bit of the week just gone. You had a weird result between the Titans and the Jags. Their games effectively didn't matter because they're playing each other this week, and the way the kind of they'd already their records through the season, it came to a position where neither of their games were overly important, which is strange. But yeah, that's not the case this week. So plenty to look forward to.
Nice. And the odds for the treble?
You're getting 9-2 on this.
9 to 2. It's not bad, you know. It's not bad. We've had worse, definitely. Anything else then, guys, that you want to discuss before we go? Anything?
No.
Pressing topics on your mind?
We might have a bit of a chat about the transfer window. If there's any players we fancy moving next week. Trouble with that, it does move quite quickly, so do be aware. And maybe next Premier League manager to go, because I think after this next round of cup games, I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about the new man coming in at Everton, or potentially even, who knows, West Ham maybe looking for a new boss.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks. So before we do wrap up, as always, we do say, make sure you do gamble responsibly. Head to Gamble Aware if you do need to. If you need any sort of information on that, or if you want someone to talk to around that, you can message us about that too. But that just about wraps it up for us, I think, lads. So again, thank you very much for listening. Follow us, like us, subscribe, follow all the socials. The socials are all at the top of the page. But that wraps it up. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
See you soon, guys.
Ciao.
Bye.